Welcome, residents, to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is Colin, and next to me is the doctor himself.
Hello.
And as always, we are joined by our producer, Richard.
Ahoy, hoy.
Oh, good. I thought you might have forgotten what you do.
Shut
Each
up.
week, we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC while fielding questions from listeners like you. While I praise Ragman for being awesome, while also wondering where the podcast's first producer prior to Richard is.
I don't know what you're talking. Who?
This What Colin Does comes with a 5-star review on iTunes from Magic Player. They go on to say this podcast is amazing. I know almost nothing about comic books, but this has helped me understand the DC comic universe incredibly well. A must listen when a new episode comes out.
Wow, that was so sincere.
I know. I'm clearly not somebody we know.
I think I need to start listening to the podcast because I haven't learned much.
Yeah, I think maybe if you listened, I mean, while we're in the room or later to the episodes in which you aren't listening, yeah, you might pick up more than you have.
Yeah, most of it is just like reactionary talk.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have to be, but when you like wake up halfway through, then yeah.
Well, I'm always busy checking my Instagram.
So he wakes up at some point?
He's constantly on his Instagram feed, yeah.
I'm like Richard at episode 4 of Docmas.
That's the one that you paid attention to because we got him hammered.
Oh, we got him so drunk.
Yeah, that was a living nightmare. Much like this podcast.
Every week.
Today, we have a guest.
We do.
Andrea Stratis.
I don't know when I'm supposed to say anything. Is now when I talk?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
good.
You're in.
Welcome.
in.
Yeah, other podcasts have like procedures and like introductions. We don't give a fuck. I don't know.
That was kind of an intro.
Yeah, I know. I
Oh
know.
yeah, no, it was definitely a good intro. That's
But it
the message.
didn't really leave like Stratis with anything to go with. It's my fault because I didn't write that.
I know. You know how you have to be with Colin. Everything has
I'm
to
like
be
Ron Burgundy. The teleprompter tells me what to do.
Itemized.
Yeah, we know that from the ad copy of Pick 2 to
Oh my
mention.
god, yeah. So, welcome. Thank you for coming and like spending time with us here in our own personal version of hell.
Thank you. I
My house.
can't wait to talk about all the DC superheroes I don't know.
You and Colin both.
Yeah. We are going to bring you back for another episode, but we definitely wanted to bring you in as soon as possible.
Yeah, exactly. So normally on episodes where we have a guest, we sort of eschew talking about like news and stuff like that. And
They take away my favorite part.
yeah, well, we take away your literally only responsibility and instead ask questions like, are you into comics? You just
Yes.
mentioned you don't necessarily know DC, but comic books in general.
I
Is
know
that a thing
I know
you're-
DC. There's Hawkfella. There's
Still ahead of Colin.
Yeah.
There's you know what? When I was a kid, I had a Dr. Fate action figure because
Wow.
I thought Dr. Fate looked super cool.
Yeah,
I didn't know
nice.
who Dr. Fate was till 2 years ago. But like when I was 8, I had a Dr. Fate action figure.
That's
I
awesome.
still don't know who he is.
Dr. Fate now wears a hoodie like the Scarlet Spider. He's wearing a hoodie and he's got like a bell on his head.
Are you just making up people?
Would you know if it,
Oh, I wouldn't. That's the best part.
He did. I
These
think
names sound so good.
He's back to more of a classic costume now, but he did wear the hoodie.
Yeah, he
for-
had that hoodie, right? Yeah, I read that comic.
Yeah.
I'm in. I know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, you're...
Shit, I'm fired.
Yeah, sorry, Colin. Pink slips in the mail.
Yeah.
But like...
You're fired from this non-paying job where people just shit on you for an hour and a half.
God,
yeah, no.
what a relief.
yeah, we aren't getting...
Yeah, nobody's getting any money.
So, other than DC, though, like, are superheroes and things like that, is that, like, in your...
Yeah, totally.
Sort of...
I grew up reading comics.
Yeah.
Like I grew up when I was a kid. I read Spider-Man a lot.
Yeah, of course.
And I actually I had a box of like really old vintage comics when I was a kid. So I was really I liked Spider-Woman, the Jessica Drew version of Spider-Woman, like way back when, who had a badass costume and has since reinvented herself in the Marvel universe as this like she's just like a private detective that wears a leather jacket now. But
Oh, really?
yeah, there was that whole controversy.
Kind of like you now.
Kind of like me now. Yeah, we both
You're a private detective who wears a leather jacket.
we went through
When
a
did you become a
reinvention of
PI?
sorts.
Was that after that cover came out?
Yeah,
There
it
was
was
that whole like thing about how like
when they realized
anatomically incorrect the sexiness was.
Yeah, well, in her costume, that was when it was finally drawn attention to the fact that the spider is like the spider symbol in her chest is basically like my eyes are down here
Right.
sort of situation. So then they were like,
Right.
what if we just put her in a leather coat and she's a private eye? So that's like I read a lot of Marvel books. I read a little bit of DC stuff. I was into Batman because I think it was illegal to be a kid and not into Batman for a spell of time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you went straight to prison.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you went into child jail.
I think they called that the 90s.
Yeah. I remember going to the Tim Burton Batman movie in the theater when I was a kid.
Nice.
And I had like a Batman action figure and a Catwoman action figure.
Yeah, of course.
Do you remember
Was it the Michelle Pfeiffer like the movie Catwoman?
I think this was like
a-
just pre-Batman Returns.
Right.
Yeah.
McDonald's had some really cool toys for those ones, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I had a
Yeah,
couple
they had like
of
the car and everything.
Yeah, I remember the penguin car was really sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a whole set that were like different cars. The penguin car had the like spinning umbrella on the front.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
Back when McDonald's wasn't worried about kids choking on shit.
I used to get like Batman figures all the time. I never read Batman comics. It wasn't until I was older that I realized Batman's like the worst superhero. Like his superpower is white privilege.
Yeah.
Like if Batman was poor, there is no way he would be Batman at all.
And also he like demonstrably makes life worse in Gotham.
Yeah, and he only goes out at night. Like I don't understand why his supervillains don't just like, okay, from 8 to 5,
That's when
we're
we'll
just
correct
all
that.
up in villainy, and then come 5:30, we just go home for the day.
Right. So
Just punch
So
the
then-
old
yeah.
villain time clock.
Batman's out there. He's like, well, patrol's pretty quiet tonight. Doing a good job. Way to go, Bruce.
Yeah.
It's just everything's on fire.
The Joker's running bankers hours.
That's Superman's job. I don't know.
That's funny. Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, I think as with anything in comics, you look at it a little too closely and it falls apart pretty quickly.
Though nowadays there's characters who fight crime in Gotham in the day, isn't there? Like
Well, they just did that miniseries with the
Yeah, they're
Signal.
called cops.
The real superheroes.
Wow, I didn't know you had such like a support the blue kind of attitude.
This has become a Blue Lives Matter.
Oh, there it is. See, you're already part of this podcast, turning the tables on Colin.
Yeah, my God. Yeah, they did a 3-issue miniseries called Batman and the Signal, and that was with like Duke Thomas was like another like street orphan that Bruce takes in, but he makes him.
Yeah, he's constantly bringing orphans in under his wing, but
Like a
like,
kidnapper.
but also like. It's like a make work scenario.
Yeah.
Like you can be my live-in orphan, but you've got to learn to fight crime.
He's like a vigilante
And
Fagin.
also never tell my secret.
yeah. You can
Are
sleep
you talking about all of the molestation, right? That's the thing. that's the part you meant.
Well, they
don't
do
you not?
sleep in bed together, or
talk
like
about
in
it.
old Batman comics, like they would sleep in like Batman and Robin would sleep in the same bed.
and they would go down those stripper poles together.
yeah,
Yeah.
because in that giant Wayne Manor, he couldn't afford more than one bedroom. Apparently,
Well, because Aunt Harriet was also living there for some reason. Yeah.
It takes a lot to heat. You need to have body warmth.
It's like an old British estate. They're just like closing down wings.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen, Robin, old chum, I'm not made of money. I can't keep footing this hydro bill. So
just huddle up close to old Batman over
to the
here.
bat bed.
Yeah. Also, like Batman's big thing is that he's oh, he's the world's greatest detective, but he's got a supercomputer in his basement. Like I could be
Yeah.
a good detective if I had a supercomputer. I could call on the phone and
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
be like, "Hey, computer, solve this crime for me."
And in some ways, that 60s Batman had an even more sophisticated computer, because there's at least one episode where they have to like find some like address or something, and they just take a whole phone book and they just shove it into this empty slot in the computer, and the computer, they don't push any buttons or anything. The computer just spits out the information they need.
I want to read the comic where it's just Alfred trying to troubleshoot an issue with a Bat computer for 45 minutes.
Have you
On
turned it off
YouTube-
and on again?
YouTube videos.
Got
wait.
tech support on the phone.
That's Bat OS number 4. This is a 5. Ah.
Batman calls in a moment of emergency. He's updating the OS and just like, well, look, we can't do anything for 45.
It's not reading the USB.
Yeah. Use your real life detective skills. Oh, you don't have any, rich boy? Oh, that's a shame. When do you call all your friends that have actual superpowers?
Just on calls. They're just like, no, don't transfer me.
I'm trying to fix this, Mr. White.
They-
You need to upgrade to the new Mac OS.
Please just transfer me to a human. Just transfer me to a human. Just transfer me to a human.
You know, the trick on that is if you don't know if you're on hold, if you swear a bunch of times, they'll pick up right away.
Really?
Yeah, that's how you get them.
Oh shit! Really?
Yeah, that's how you get through. Is you just got to just like lay into that for the on hold section.
Is this like an automated thing that like here's your swear? Like, can you just say it calmly, or do you need to be like
I've
screaming?
actually never tried it.
Yeah.
I just hit 0 like a bazillion times.
Yeah.
That's generally the way to go. But
Wait,
I just hang
you
up.
could do that. I've just been like waiting on hold like a chump. I didn't know any of these strategies.
0 generally will take you to like a person.
What?
Yeah,
What?
Zero's usually how they operate.
You just play the drum fills from Moby Dick on Zero just all day long, and you'll get a human.
Oh, I've just been sitting with that
think
robot voice.
Think about how many days you've wasted.
Oh my god, like at least 7.
It's never good to think about how much time in your life has been wasted doing like just
This podcast.
mundane shit. Yeah. Yeah, best not to think about that.
Bruce, is it offensive if I ask what country they're coming from? It's just so hard to understand them.
Jesus.
I think
Racist Michael Caine, Alfred.
Michael Caine seems a bit racist, though.
I can see it. He's
Like
old.
an old Englishman.
Yeah, he's an old
he
white
could be,
English
yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
He's definitely got complicated.
Listen, you were
opinions.
one of our colonies. I should expect that you can speak English.
Can we go with one of the ever lightnings?
Oh, no.
Oh yeah, DC falls into the trap of naming its diverse characters after the color of skin they have, right?
Well,
I call that the Yellow Ranger effect.
there are some exceptions to this rule, but the rule of thumb is that if you're a woman and the word black is in your title, you aren't black. But if you're a man and the word black is in your title, you are.
Oh my god.
Black Panther, Black Lightning, Black Manta, all black.
Sure.
Black Canary or Black Widow, not black.
Oh yeah.
There are exceptions, obviously, but like that's the
not
rule
the
of
black.
thumb. Yeah, not the black. Yeah, it's super topical.
My jokes.
Oh God, that's really funny. So, do you still read comics? Are you still into?
I still
things?
read comics now. Yeah, and I actually around when the New 52 thing kicked in, I started reading Batman again when it was Greg Capullo and what's his name, Scott Snyder. I read that. I read that.
Why don't you have a
run.
button for that?
Because when there's 4 people, it's difficult to direct in with the soundboard.
Oh, so the trick to get you to stop doing that is just to keep having guests.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just come sit in every time you need to deflect.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah. So I read that run of Batman, and then after that, I kind of lost interest again.
you. Yeah.
I can't get it.
Did you read like all the way through, like the
Yeah.
Gordon Batman and everything? Like
Yeah,
that?
yeah. I stuck through that for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
Sorry to hear
that's a weird story. Yeah.
What everybody wants is what Batman's taking some downtime and working at a daycare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like just sitting on a bench next to the Joker.
He did have a good hangover beard at that time.
did.
I don't understand why Batman doesn't like grow a beard, because then he could cover the only remainder of his face when he's crime fighting, right?
Well, and we know it works for Green Arrow because no one's ever figured out that super distinctive Van Dyke goatee belongs to both the mayor of Star City and Green
But
Arrow.
in the
He's the
21st century,
mayor?
who doesn't
Well,
have
he
a
was
beard?
for a bit. I don't think he is currently, but
How do you run that mayoral campaign and also you're like
Not
a
Green
modern
Arrow.
age Robin Hood? Yeah. I've never understood. So like Green Arrow is DC's answer to Hawkeye.
Well, Green Arrow
We'll do
came-
this episode.
Yeah,
Green
sure,
Arrow
we'll do this episode.
Came
yeah.
first, but yes, he's the resident archer, the
Sure.
man who can't miss. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty
Which
much.
is again a really specific thing. Like
more than that though. He's just like low rent Batman, or he was initially. He was just like another rich person with tech, and
Sure.
like in the early comics, he had an Arrow plane and an Arrow car, and even an Arrow cave.
Took me a
None of
second.
which makes sense because
Sure.
bats live in a cave, but arrows don't.
Wouldn't they call
And
it
an arrow
okay,
bar.
a quiver?
They should call it the
Yeah,
quiver,
yeah.
but they don't.
An arrow
I think
bar,
saying
it's
I'm going to
mint.
the quiver sounds gross.
Yeah, like it's like a strip club on the other side.
Yeah.
Isn't that what Batman says to Robin?
Oh,
Poor taste.
moving on.
Now on to this week's theme, Pride.
Yeah, so we put the theme for this like last episode of our like fan month to a vote, and it came back that we're gonna talk about like
Well, we took everybody's suggestions, and
Well,
then
yes.
then we had a dark horse, which was to do a Pride episode.
Yeah.
We were like, yeah. So we ended up doing the final 3, which included this one, and it won.
and it won. So
So I'm in as a diversity hire.
3 white guys.
Yeah.
yeah,
Help us.
Yeah, because the episode that we should be talking about the most. Well, we've already done the diversity episode, and we knew nothing
we've done a
about
couple
that.
of episodes
that we
as-
should not have
as
spoken
3
to.
like cis white guys.
Yeah.
that like
See
yeah.
episode 1 through 4.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a whole bunch that we probably shouldn't have done, but we did anyway.
the whole podcast we shouldn't have done. So that's fine.
But
Well, like I'll just lean back and you guys can talk about queer people in comics.
let us tell you about queer people in comics. We know a lot. Yeah, so we've taken your questions about LGBTQ characters in DC Comics, and I'm going to do my best to like provide the sort of comic expertise side of things.
I know of one off the top of my head, and that's Barbara Gordon's roommate.
Was she a superhero?
No, but she's transgender.
Superhero adjacent?
Yeah. She there's an issue of Bat. Which Bat person is she? Bat lady?
She's Batgirl.
Bat lady, Bat girl?
Batgirl.
Yeah. They gotta find a different flying animal. Like there's Hawkeye, and then there's a million different Bat variants.
Yeah.
I've been going with anytime they call a character something girl, I've been changing it to something ma'am.
Batman.
Yeah. Batman.
Batman actually has like
some punch to it.
If Martha Wayne was to come back to life, she'd be a great Batman.
Oh, DC execs, we know you're always listening.
If you're listening.
If you tuned back in for some reason.
But Barbara Gordon's roommate is trans, and there was an issue where Barbara Gordon's like coming out to her roommate as being fucking Batgirl.
Yeah,
which is like that is such a weird dynamic back and forth coming out process. Where like the one is like, I'm going to tell them I'm trans and this is going to be amazing, and Barbara Gordon's like, oh, I'm fucking Batgirl. Like, okay, great.
Son of a bitch, this was my day.
You're right.
My news.
You're right. I should have went first.
Yeah.
You can't ever have me give one thing. I just
This was my day.
So being someone who is trans, like, and like you've recently come out, are you just now starting to notice these characters in comics, or are you seeing the lack of them? Or
I don't know. I had sort of noticed them here and there. Like, do you read Saga? So there's a trans character in Saga.
Yeah.
And I remember reading that, and I was late to the party on Saga, and I remember people would always tell me about it. So last year, I had bought like all of it. I just read all my comics on my iPad with Comixology.
Yeah.
That's where I buy all my comics. And
hell yeah.
I just bought like all of Saga, and it was like, I'll read one, and then all of a sudden it's 2 hours later, and I'm still sitting on my couch.
Toilet.
Or quote unquote toilet. Yeah. Anything's a toilet if you try hard enough.
That's a good point.
It's like if you can dig a hole, you can have a toilet. So I remember reading that and getting to that point and being like, oh, that's an interesting thing. Yeah. And it's like, I like the idea that it was just sort of brought up, and then it wasn't like, I mean, it's sort of come up circumstantially in regards to how she like sort of lives her life and interacts with the world, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Which is the interesting thing. And that's like, you're starting to see that a little bit more now, is like, if a character is queer in any regard, it's like, either it can be a huge deal, like Marvel, like Iceman came out as queer in the last year, and that was been like turned into this crazy,
it was a gigantic thing.
Yeah, it was like this huge thing. That was like the reason why I had to stop reading the comment section on IGN for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Which is like,
I could see that.
If you want to be alt-right and into like video games and comics, IGN is your website. Thus negating IGN being a potential sponsor.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
What was the comic bookology? That's where you read all your stuff.
Comixology.
Where's the sponsorship deal on that, you guys? Come on, let's get that.
I know they're throwing money at podcasts, but
seemingly not this one. Till today,
amateurs.
Yeah.
If you stopped offending everyone.
Yeah, Richard.
I'm never going to stop doing that. I'm just surprised that everybody was so upset about Iceman being gay. With a character that cool, how could it not be?
Oh, that was bad. That's a bad joke.
Oh no,
he's gonna edit in the drum roll on that one.
He's gonna edit in all
laughter.
of us laughing. He's gonna take it from elsewhere. Yeah.
So what do you think that soundboard's turned into now?
Yeah, pretty
well,
much.
And it's funny because everybody's complaint with like when Iceman came out as being queer, and everybody's issue with it was like, oh, he dated Kitty Pryde and all this stuff.
Because no gay man has ever dated a woman.
Exactly. Like
Karamo.
Yeah.
Didn't Elton John get married at one point?
Yeah, Elton John was briefly married.
He was like married to like a way hotter lady.
Did you know Karamo?
I didn't.
Right. Karamo has a kid.
Who?
Yeah.
Who's Karamo?
Queer Eye. You're the one person who hasn't watched Queer Eye here.
Yeah, I haven't seen Queer Eye.
Let us tell you about Queer Eye.
I like that the three cis people in the room are watching Queer Eye. I'm at home watching Luke Cage season.
I still have to do that.
Let his outfit tell you about how much Queer Eye he's been watching.
Are you French tucking? That's the only thing.
Yes. Yes.
I can't French tuck. It makes me look pudgy.
Anyway. Let Tan tell you about that.
I have Luke
Richard's
Cage in the corner here.
Luke Cage on his laptop as we talk.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're so invested.
Yeah. Wow, I'm like 5 episodes in.
Luke Cage is one of the only colored superhero of color that didn't get like black in front of his name. He was never like Black Power Man, which admittedly Probably a pretty rough.
I mean, his arch nemesis would be pretty rough.
Ooh.
It literally would be
if we're going
white power,
color
man.
opposites,
Yeah,
So basically every alt-right person on IGN.
yeah. Basically, the comment section of IGN is Power Man. So.
Hey, AV Club is pretty bad
Yeah,
too.
AV Club's not great either. Actually, the internet's not all.
Yeah, no, who are we talking to?
Speaking of internet,
Yes.
clean up your
Speaking
act.
of internet,
Yeah,
we
sure.
have some
Let's
questions from
jump
people
in.
that are presumably not bigots.
Oh, sure.
So
I can't wait till we get to the one that is.
yeah, we left that in.
Also, interesting to note, there's a lot of trans writers in comics, and DC has a couple.
Yep.
And
I
there's,
did not know
there's
that.
a series
Magdalene
called
Visagio.
Yeah, exactly. Eternity Girl. I've just been reading that.
Yeah.
And she's like Kim and Kim and a couple other series that she's done. And Sophie Campbell, who I believe used to write for DC, right?
Yeah, she did.
And she's a transgender and she's a writer. There's a couple of trans writers, and Sandman over the years, because Sandman's on a DC variant, is it not?
Oh yeah. Sandman's part of like DC's
Yeah,
continuity.
and Sandman's had trans characters in it in the past.
absolutely.
as well.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
See, I know all kinds of nerd shit.
Yeah. Colin, get out of here.
Bye. I'm getting a glimpse of what this podcast could have been.
Every time we have a guest.
I'm gonna go finish watching the rest of Queer Eye season 2. Bye.
You know what?
Kind of look like the one dude though.
That's
the long hair.
Okay.
What's his name? Jonathan?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
you kinda
literally
look like that
what
guy.
we call that guy Gay Colin.
Oh shit! I just gotta stop leaning back when I laugh.
You got too excited. It's okay.
That joke was so funny that they
Almost
That
fell
is-
out of your chair.
Yeah, I
That's
nearly
awesome.
bowled over backwards, but it's quite true. Yeah.
Right? I know. That's day one. We were like, oh, it's Gay Colin.
We actually we played a game called Marry, Fuck, Kill, and the Two Best Friends. And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that my answer to that was like spot on.
It was pretty good, but
Yeah.
Hold on, Marry, Fuck, Kill, and Two Best Friends.
Well,
yeah, well, because there's five. Yeah,
Oh,
so
sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah,
you got to do something with the other two. So
You can't fuck the other two.
I mean, yeah, it's just marry, fuck
if they were
three,
your
and then
best
kill.
friends.
You know, like how
Polygamy's
best
illegal.
friends do.
Yeah,
You guys are my best friends.
best friends forever.
Did you ever see? That's just making me think of. There's a Baroness von sketch where it's just headlights and a woman digging a ditch, and she's like, "Look, we all agreed, marry Stephen."
That's okay. That's
It's a super quick sketch, and
Amazing.
it's so funny.
Oh, I love
it's
that.
so funny.
That delivers it.
It
pretty
is such a
quickly.
good joke. Yeah.
I've heard that show is so good, and I just haven't
Baroness
watched it
is
yet.
amazing. Yeah, it's
Oh,
super
that's
funny.
awesome.
Well, let's jump into some questions.
Yeah, let's get
do
to
it.
these questions.
First on Twitter.
Twitter. What?
Like a lead balloon.
You guys need some like drops.
We have them. It's that the problem is that I can't DI from the other two inputs.
The problem is that the consistency is lacking in his performances. He's like Bob Dylan
No,
now.
There's
No,
there's a vibe in the room.
What the real
That's-
problem
Welcome to this podcast.
is that when it's just the three of us, Richard goes ham on sound effects and silly things, and as soon as there's a guest, he gets super embarrassed about what he does, and he pulls back.
You should play them on your phone, like with the speaker.
I know, but
he does,
That's some
so.
2-bit piece of shit production, and I feel like we're ahead of that. Also, by the way, one of the things.
The theme for this episode is "fuck Richard."
I mean, I'm into it, but
and then they did.
one. It's
Which one's the
hilarious.
marry and which one's the kill?
One of the things that I love is that we've been having this conversation about the production of this podcast when we haven't even brought up the fact that Stratis is also co-owner of Brain Freeze Podcast
Oh, yeah.
Network, which
Yeah.
we are on.
Which, and we haven't brought up the fact that we're on that podcast network.
Well, no, we kind of vaguely mentioned it. That's
What a weird way to come out that we're on the podcast.
Well, if we were going to come out on any episode.
Well, the other one of us has to come out as Batgirl now.
Yeah. Damn it.
Colin.
This was our
Now that
day.
you've done the big look, as a person that knows a thing or two about a coming out process, you've done the hard part.
Saying it on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. Say it on the internet, then a bunch of people will tell other people for you whether you want them to or not. I remember once I was talking to, I can't remember who, I think like the woman that does my laser hair removal on my face, and we were talking about it, and I was like, well, you know, like I'm still like keeping it kind of a secret, and she was like, so you're just like super shitty at keeping secrets then? Yeah, fair enough. Touche.
That's amazing.
Touche, laser lady.
hard to keep a secret in a town of very, very few people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do they say on Twitter?
Yeah, so what are the
Well,
questions?
we've got puffed
What?
cheek pastry.
There it goes. Want to say that 10 times fast?
Not at all ever.
Okay.
Midnighter can be seen as one of the most violent characters in DC. Do you feel that he might be seen as an analogy for not judging personalities based on who they love? Or being the released pent-up frustration that unfortunately some men, women, and non-binary have to go through for just being themselves?
Have you ever heard of Midnighter?
No, that sounds like a made up name.
This character is Midnight.
Technically, all names are made up.
Sure, yeah, that's fair.
This whole
Batman's for real.
this
Yeah,
whole
yeah, yeah.
podcast just got turned on its ear.
So Midnighter was from this like other imprint called Wildstorm that was like its own
Oh, I know.
universe.
That's Jim Lee.
It was
right?
Jim Lee, yeah. And then eventually got folded into DC, so it's part of like the main continuity now.
Right.
But so Midnighter was like a version of Batman that just like killed people and didn't give a shit about it. In fact, kind of loved it.
Right.
But Midnighter
Like
also
Flashpoint Batman.
well, but enjoys it. Like not just like angry, like I kill because I'm sad.
Yeah.
Like just killing because they're bad guys and
He's
it's
like
fun.
the Red Hood.
More like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Midnighter has some like enhanced strength and speed and that, and has like a computer in his brain that can predict the outcome of any combat situation. So he basically, if he can win a fight, he will, because
Sure.
he'll know what to do to win it, like every step along the way. But his name's Lucas Trent, and he's gay. And his partner is Apollo, which was like Wildstorm's version of Superman,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Apollo the greatest. Sorry.
Like Creed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I think where the question is going is that Midnighter is like a super.
Is he angry because he's gay? Is that what they're asking?
No, I actually think it's just.
I mean, you know what they say about them.
I think it's asking the question that because like Midnighter's not like the stereotypical kind of gay
Sure.
sort of type.
Yep.
Because he's super violent. It's like all of those like hyper toxic masculine qualities,
Yeah.
but is also gay. Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to what.
Yeah, I don't fully understand the question they're asking, to be perfectly honest.
I guess let's reframe it a little bit.
Yeah.
When you're reading comics,
Uh-huh.
do you find that there's like a pretty wide range in how gay characters or queer characters are portrayed, or do you find that they often get pigeonholed into something? Does something like a hyper violent, like basically toxic masculinity gay guy sound out of the box, or does it?
It definitely, I mean, it sounds out of the box a little bit. I'm trying to think of like queer characters I know in comics, but I'm just going off of like Marvel, which is what I know the best.
Yeah.
So like North Star from
Yeah.
Alpha Flight is gay
Yeah.
and like got married a couple of years ago, like had like the first gay marriage in comics. And he's like, he's rich and kind of a jerk and it's like French Canadian.
Of course.
The two are
You
correlated.
didn't even say those first two things.
Yeah. But he's like kind of arrogant and kind of a jerk and is also and like
French Canadian.
kind of like plays to type. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's French Canadian. I don't have to keep adding to it. But
You keep saying it keeps hurting.
he
Shut your mouth.
yeah, you're
are you French Canadian?
Yeah.
His last name's Vanier.
You couldn't tell by how arrogant I am?
I just figured you were.
So many soundboard buttons
Yeah.
I could be pressing right now.
So I guess like he would be kind of stereotypical, but not really. And like Iceman doesn't act like super now that he's like an out gay man in comics. Like doesn't act like necessarily stereotypically
flamboyant,
gay. Yeah, but like
Oh, he would melt.
Yeah.
Oh no!
you broke him. You broke him.
I'm so upset.
This is like if Barry Bonds played T-ball against actual children.
Oh shit!
Damn it. All right, you can stay.
You've been rehired at double pay. I keep. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say that like he's playing against type, just because I think now maybe now there's like a more nuanced look at like queer representation in comics,
Yeah.
which is like admittedly pretty early. And it's not terribly nuanced because largely they always get like non-queer people to write queer characters. So
Yeah.
which is always problematic, right? It's the same as like hiring a white dude to write Black Panther.
Yeah.
Which was what happened a lot of the times. And like oddly enough, nobody was super into Black Panther until they started finally getting people of color to write it because they can write from experience,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So
At least we're not in the same place we were like 50 years ago when Superman found pink kryptonite.
Well, that's
did that actually
that's not
happen?
that long ago.
Yeah.
Really?
That story's from like the
Oh my
90s.
God, yeah.
so what happens when Superman finds
He also finds floral print.
There's a story from it's
he
either the
finds a
late
French tuck?
it's the late 90s or early 2000s actually. It's one issue and Superman is exposed to pink kryptonite and he doesn't officially turn gay, but he does start complimenting Jimmy's outfit.
Because apparently you have to be gay to do that.
Oh my god.
So
I
bad.
think it's like Supergirl number 79 or something like that is the issue, and it's not great.
They really should have done it 10 issues earlier.
Supergirl 69.
We're doing it.
So thanks everyone for listening to this podcast. This is the last episode. We really appreciate you guys coming.
Every episode's the last episode.
Yeah, we don't need to do
We're
any
pulling
more.
out all the stops tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to what the writers were trying to do with Midnight, or if he's meant to represent some sort of like frustration or anger or something. I think
it's interesting to do it that way. Like, I think it's interesting to portray a gay character as not playing a type and to being like maybe a little bit more aggressive and maybe, like you said, having those like toxic masculinity sort of qualities. But still be like, and I'm assuming he's openly gay.
he is openly gay, but
He just kills everyone he tells.
But another thing he shares with Batman is being like very like emotionally like distant and sort of shut off.
I mean, that is interesting, right? Because you definitely don't think of like the stereotype of gay people is that like, or any queer people in general, is that they're like more like emotionally open and they're like very like flowy with their feelings. And it's interesting to see someone be played as still very shut off.
I like the idea of like a very racist gay character.
I didn't say racist.
I know, but I'm just thinking of like,
But you were thinking it.
So they're very open about sexuality, but not
and about like any gender issues and like queer culture, but like just like does not like.
but race is
But
like,
that exists in the queer communities. Like in queer communities, there is a lot of dissension. Like there is queer people that aren't down with trans people or aren't down with like queer people of color have a harder time.
there was a big like furor over adding like the brown and black stripes to the pride flag, wasn't there?
Yeah, because they're finally, well, the pride flag is finally being modified to be like actually inclusive, because like I think for like outside looking in, you would think of like queer culture as being very accepting, but like within those groups, there's all these subgroups and there's all these things that people can either choose to like or sort of distance themselves from. And people of color traditionally have always been treated worse than straight people, like white queer people, right? So it is interesting that DC has a queer character that's also a person of color, because that's definitely a thing that most things just don't necessarily have. Or they do, but they play it to such an awful stereotype that it's just like not worth including.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Talking Superman goes, why is Midnighter so fucking cool?
So the answer to that is
because of all the stuff we just said.
all the stuff we just said, from like badass, violent, out gay character who like enjoys their sexuality and just like goes
Buck wild.
has a good time.
Like, it's a non-issue, which is what it should be, right?
Exactly.
I mean, like by and large, it should just be your orientation or your identity is what it is.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily change your tendencies or your overall personality.
And of course, combat fight computer.
Yeah, I mean, like that's just a given. When you come out as queer, they give you a computer in your head of some kind. You just get to choose what it is.
Right.
Normally 9 times.
Mine would be a speak and spell, I think.
Just like they glue a speak and spell to the side of your head.
Yeah, we can't miniaturize this.
I got one of those Tiger football machines, you know? I just got one of those.
Nice.
Yeah.
All of this talk about non-binary just keeps bringing me back to the episode of Star Trek I just watched. It's from season 1 of Next Generation. The binary alien group who only speaks in binary language.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the episode where Data makes an android child and allows the child to choose its gender.
Is that actually happen?
Yeah.
That's really
That's
cool.
in like one of the first couple of seasons
first of all,
Next Gen. Yeah.
I haven't gotten that far.
Spoiler alert.
Second of all,
It came out in like
I already watched the show twice the whole way through, so I have watched it before.
So Data makes this child like
because
just
it's an android.
builds it
Data
as
is
spare
an-
parts. Yeah, sure, yeah. But is there like the parts on the ship to make an android?
Yes, I guess. I can't remember I think, or they like find a lab or something.
Sure.
Where
He doesn't just have like a box of parts in the basement. He's like, eventually I'm gonna do something with this stuff.
Well, because I'm wondering if
he's like that one guy's dad who's got like all of that lumber stacked in the
Yeah,
back there. He's like,
yeah.
I don't know where it comes from, but I'm going to do something with it one day.
I ran
build a
my
good
own
deck.
contracting company for a good number of years, and my house was full of boxes of stuff that I was like, eventually this will come in handy, and I just threw it all out eventually, which I'm assuming Data was about to do before he's like, what if
Yeah.
I could use a smaller version of me running around? find.
Well,
Exactly.
you got to be careful because the last time we found one that looked like him, it was when they found his
Lore?
lore. Yeah, no, that didn't turn out well at all.
No, that didn't. That's true.
There's also have you watched the Orville?
Welcome to the Doctor Star Trek podcast.
I'll totally make that podcast. Have you? The Orville is like the comedy version of Star
Oh,
Trek.
no, I know what it is.
It's
I haven't
amazing,
watched it, yeah.
and they have a character there who's kind of like the Klingon,
Okay.
but it's not. But like he has a gay husband on the show, and they have a child together.
Is he also gay, or is just...
Well, no, I mean technically they're not even gay because the characters that race doesn't have any female.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it's all just men, but they have a child, and the child ends up becoming female, and they have the whole episode's about like whether they should make the child male.
Sounds like the beginning of Fort McMurray.
What?
Just a bunch of dudes working in the field together. No
That's
women.
not what...
What?
Hey, what's the next question?
That's my way out of this Star Trek talk.
It's actually the Orville, but it's fine.
Flag.
Black flag, did you say?
Cash.
Cash flag.
Oh my god, that shirt! Did you make it yet?
I printed one. I ripped off the black flag logo and made a trans flag logo.
Oh,
shirt.
nice.
It says trans flag instead of black flag, and then it's got the actual trans flags as the blocks.
Nice.
Yeah.
This
That's a dope
is
shirt.
my gay way to making $1 million until Henry Rollins comes to my house.
And then getting sued for $1 million.
The amount of people who have ripped off that logo, I think
It's
you're fine.
parody. You can parody a logo all you want.
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
fine. So like Keith Morris can't come to my house and murder me, which is nice.
I mean, you could, but
She shouldn't.
Yeah, he should.
Yeah, that'd be a bad time. So Cash Flag asks, in your personal opinion, was it worth losing Obsidian to gain New 52 Alan Scott?
So are you familiar with Alan Scott? He was the original Green Lantern. If you've seen like the Golden Age Green Lantern, he had
the
like...
really, really bad one.
Yeah, he had like a orange shirt and a purple cape.
I was
and,
thinking of the old version of the Flash where he was wearing like a colander on his head.
from the
That's
same
different,
era,
right? Yeah.
From the exact same era.
Sure.
Not nearly as cool.
So that Alan Scott Green Lantern had 2 children. One was Jade, who kind of had Green Lantern powers, and the other was Obsidian, who had like shadow powers. And Obsidian came out as gay. And then when they did the New 52, basically they made a younger version of Alan Scott on Earth 2, made him gay, and then the kids didn't exist at all. So the question is, basically, is it worth trading one gay character for another? I have to imagine that the answer is no.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to erase a queer character and then just like for like whatever, like you need to fill your diversity numbers, I guess. So you're like, what if we just turn this straight character gay and like then our bases are covered?
Yeah, I mean,
All our bases are belong to us.
yeah. I don't know if that might have been the reasoning why they did it. I will say, having read the New 52 story with Alan Scott, I felt like they wrote it well. But just knowing that he wasn't always gay,
Right.
then it's like,
So, but
it feels like a...
Is he now written as a character that was always gay though, or is he written as a character that like came out?
No, he's written as a character that was always gay. But just to muddy the continuity, this original like non-gay Alan Scott might show up on like the main Earth continuity, like on a different parallel.
Oh right, yeah, because there's
So
like,
they
there's
might
like a
have
million Earths.
They might
yeah.
have both now. So if they do that and then they also bring back Obsidian, then you get more gay characters, which
Sure.
is good, I think. But yeah, I mean, trading one for another, that to me,
I guess
yeah.
it depends on if you prefer. What was the one called? Obsidian.
Obsidian, yeah.
So I guess if you were a big Obsidian fan, bummer.
Well, and I think part of it too is that like Obsidian had all these like issues with his own powers and like being like even just like accepted by his father, Green Lantern, who didn't know he existed for a long time. And then I think that became like a bit of like they used that dynamic, and then when he came out as gay, they could like play with that even
yeah.
more, like those sort of ideas. And then that New 52 Alan Scott one, he's just like a powerful like media like magnet who's also gay. Like he doesn't have a struggle in that regard. So
Sure.
I think they've definitely like lost something that way.
Yeah, they've lost like an interesting story or
Yeah.
like an interesting character relationship because that would be interesting. Oh yeah, so he's Green Lantern.
Yeah, he was
So
the
he,
original
and so
Green
he's
Lantern.
like so he's a good guy.
Yeah.
So he's like you'd view him as this sort of like character for good for the side of good, but it's also like kind of a homophobe. Like that's an interesting dynamic, right? And then like the son coming out as gay and
Yeah.
trying to sort of reconcile his already like complicated relationship with his father, and then add on the fact that he realizes he's queer. Yeah, it's interesting. And it's a shame that is gone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that they ever showed Green Lantern being like not okay with it, but they definitely played up the idea that he had an already strained relationship, and they used that as like the metaphor, right?
Right,
I think.
right.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of hope that when they bring back the original Alan Scott, which looks like it might happen, that they also bring back Obsidian, because
This is the hard thing with DC Comics. It's like they bounce forward, they bounce back. There's like a couple of Earths. Flash keeps like turning things around.
he's got to stop trying to save his mom.
Yeah, your mom's dead, man. Get over it. Everybody else's mom is dead.
Martha.
Well, nice.
Is his mom's name Martha
No,
too?
that would be too much.
All moms
are Martha?
Yeah, all moms are
That's
Martha.
the
They all
editorial
die
edict,
and they're all named Martha.
Yeah, we got a lot on Mother's Day. We got a lot of Happy Martha's Day, which I thought was very funny. Controversial Obsidian comment. I think New Vegas is better than Fallout 3.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people. A lot of people share that sentiment.
Yeah.
I don't know.
it.
It's a company that made it Fallout.
It's called
series.
Obsidian.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not the Obsidian that we were talking about.
No, I'm pretty sure.
Different but same.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm always curious what you're doing.
I know, you're always fucking looking. Don't worry about what's going on here. It's all stuff to make you look bad.
Anyways, we're going to Instagram.
I don't have a song.
No, you don't.
Oh, yeah, I know. Well, we're going to Instagram, take some photos and answer them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was bummed out that I didn't get to hear the theme song off the top.
Oh, yeah, I know. We don't
off
do
the
that.
shaft.
We totally
We do
could.
that in post.
It happens in post.
I guess I technically could just...
Most of the magic happens in post.
Do you
No,
want,
that's
do you
okay.
want to
I've
just
heard it-
play
I've
a
heard
clip
it
of it at
before.
some point?
No. It's too late now. We've gone too far.
Yeah, we're too deep. Yeah.
The real Josh Gill asks a million questions
God.
now.
It's fucking...
Is that your heart just driving away?
I think it might be. This man's very attractive.
Who is?
Josh Gill. Well, yeah, I mean... I'm not gonna try to.
On a scale of 1 to 10.
He's gonna start pressing charges
For being too good looking?
for me sexually
He
harassing.
bought one of our T-shirts, and then you asked him to send a picture of him without it on.
Well, I need
Send nudes for reference.
Well, I just so that I understand what the sizing works like.
You just want to make sure their bodies were roughly the same. so
And then if you
knew
could
which size to
take a
order.
photo of it next to your dick, just so that I could see the size.
You're like the pilot in Airplane.
I'm okay with that.
DM him asking if he spent time in a Turkish prison.
So, what does the cute Josh Gill have to say?
Yeah.
Well, he begins with, who is the most surprising character to come out?
Now, I know you're not necessarily a DC person,
No.
but just in general, was there one that like surprised you?
Iceman
in
was
comics?
surprising
Yeah.
when they were like, "Oh, Iceman's gay," and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting."
Had they not like built up to it?
Well,
or-
so in the Marvel continuity, do you read Marvel books?
I don't. Really.
No, that's fine.
Not because I dislike them, but I just
He does have knowledge, though. A surprising amount of knowledge for someone who doesn't.
in the Marvel
quote, read
continuity
them.
right now, they've done this thing that is arguably pretty stupid, where like the original 5 X-Men have been brought into like the modern age. So there's 2 versions of like, except for Cyclops, who's currently dead. Like
Okay.
the older version
Thank
of Cyclops is
God.
dead.
Right.
The younger one is still there. So like there's like 2
Oh.
beasts and 2 Icemen and 2 angels and all this thing.
they're like time displays.
Yeah, they're time displaced, and for whatever reason, it makes sense. So the younger Iceman was kind of always gay. Like he came out as gay pretty quickly, and then the older one was like, "How can you be gay? I'm not gay." And then 4 months later, was like, "It turns out."
Right. Whoops.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But I mean, it was surprising just because I'd been reading X-Men comics for a long time, and he had never been gay before. And it was like a left field thing. It was.
Did it make it feel less genuine? Like did
it
it
made
feel
sense.
like it didn't come off as like a corporate kind of like we need another gay character thing?
That was probably the situation, but it didn't read that way.
Okay, well that's
To me, anyways. Like, but also like it's funny because I mean everybody's relationship too is going to be different too, right? So like I definitely don't speak for all queer people when they're like,
No.
Iceman's pretty
When we brought
problematic."
you in here, that's the reason.
There was a vote.
Yeah, that's
better you than us.
We have quorum.
You were
that's
the
right.
candidate.
yeah. I'm trying to think of like other.
I don't know that there was like a surprising one for me in DC that like I wouldn't have.
One of the
Thought
Batwomen
it?
is gay. But one with the red hair.
Batwoman is
Yeah, right.
Kate Kane. She's Bruce Wayne's cousin.
Right.
She's Batwoman.
That was the one that was written by Gail Simon, right? For a long time.
Well, and yeah, she Gail Simone and did Greg Rucka write a run or something like that too?
Yeah,
but yeah,
she got booted off the book after a while, I think.
Yeah, and Batwoman was partners with Renee Montoya,
But you killed my father. Back to
who became she was the Question. So
Did
they were
Antigo get murdered too?
yeah, that's right.
Who's the Question? Is that a superhero?
yeah like a vigilante detective with no face, like wears a faceless mask.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
a face
So
under
she
it,
didn't
but-
remove her face
No,
to go
no,
fight
no.
crime like the Joker.
No.
When he cut his own face
No,
off.
not like that. I don't think one surprised me a lot, but one that I know seemed to like come out of quote unquote left field for people, which I disagree, but it seemed to cause a stir, was when it was officially announced that Wonder Woman is bisexual.
Oh, sure. But she was always bisexual. Like in
Of
the
course
Golden
she
and Silver
was.
Age comics, she was bisexual.
Of course she was. And she grew up on an island of only women. And I
Yeah.
think it's Greg Rucka who wrote a lot of Wonder
Sure.
Woman comics, basically wrote like, she doesn't see herself as queer. She just was on an island and all there were women. Just like you were saying with that Orville thing where that whole one species is all men.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're just, you just love who you love or you have sex with
Yeah,
who you have
You're
sex with.
Amazonian. I
there
don't
was
know, like,
only other Amazons.
You're attracted to who you're attracted to. And then she was like, oh, hey, Steve Trevor, you're a man. What's that thing down there? And then it's like, okay, sweet. And then,
Okay, sweet. I like that. That's good.
yeah, so I think like that seemed to cause like, you know, the internet stir where everyone was
Sure.
like, she's never been bisexual. But yeah, you're right. If you look at any Wonder Woman comic, basically ever written,
Yeah.
she's clearly queer in some way, if not explicitly bisexual.
The thing about Wonder Woman that I find very interesting is that she just doesn't seem to give a fuck. Like
No, she doesn't.
she's pretty loosey goosey, you know, for lack of a better term. So I mean, it makes sense for her character to be bisexual and not have it be a big deal. But it's funny because like to be bisexual is still sort of stigmatized almost more than just being gay. Like being gay, people can understand. Being bi is like a thing that people sort of have a difficult time with, even though it's
Did
like
you
super
read
common.
that article by Stephanie Beatrice, who plays
Yeah.
Rosa Diaz on
Brooklyn
Brooklyn
Nine-Nine?
Nine-Nine?
Yeah.
She wrote an article about how she's now married to a man, but that doesn't make her not bisexual.
Yeah.
And it was a really great read. But yeah, I think it like touched on some
Totally.
of those points. Yeah.
And the episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine where she comes out as bisexual was
Yeah.
like really interesting.
That was
Which-
her choice too for that character.
Yeah, her choice for that character. And it was funny because that was sort of coming on TV as I was coming out too. So it was like an interesting
Right.
thing to watch on TV because they're like different coming out reasons, but like
Yeah.
same idea, you know?
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's funny. Like, I don't know of a lot of comic because there's not a lot of queer characters in comics still. Like, it's pretty minimal. And there's like, it's less so that there's some issue where they're like, you'll never believe what's inside. And then it turns out one of the 74 Bat people is gay.
Yeah. Right.
I'm still kind of just waiting for Batman to be gay.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
okay
like-
with that. I'm excited for that to happen because he's always like pushing ladies away in his life and like
He's getting married to Catwoman.
He is. Yeah.
They're currently married.
Although
And might I say, meow.
I think there's a question that
why are you trying so hard? Stop it.
I think there's a question that might touch on this later, but even though Batman is demonstrably straight in the comics, I've always, well, I shouldn't,
You saw the Clooney movie, right?
well, yeah, but what I mean is, I've always seen Batman as like, he just hasn't like met the right one. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it makes me think of, what is it? Is it Skyfall, where Javier Bardem is the bad guy, is a Bond movie?
Sure.
The
And-
best villain.
and-
But
Oh.
his
there's a
sexuality
scene-
is
and there-
never really out and out said. It's just implied.
But there's
Yeah.
a scene where he's got Bond strapped to a chair and he's like being all like seductive the way you would expect of a Bond girl. And
Yeah.
Bond just like rolls with it. He's
Yeah.
like, he doesn't go like, oh no. Like he's just in,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I think in my head, Batman has always been that way. It's just never come up,
yeah.
but that it would feel not out of left field. Like I think it feels right to me. I don't know why. I don't know that there's any like evidence within the comics to support it, but it's just always how I felt about Batman. Yeah, that
He's just waiting for the right situation to arise.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I love how this question has gone from who is the most surprising to who we would be least surprised
Who are we
by.
shipping? Who are we shipping to be actually gay? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
The next question is, how did you feel about Alan Scott being reimagined as a gay character in the New 52's Earth 2?
Well, we touched on that
covered
one.
that.
Yeah.
God, Josh, pay attention.
Yeah, Josh.
Yeah. Stop sending in your question live.
Yeah, you should really know like at what point we're going to answer these questions. So,
Can we call Josh? Can we get Josh on the phone?
oh, I wish.
Okay, this is why
we'd
we
have
have
to leave.
yeah. Can we
No,
get
no,
him
it
to
has
Skype
to be
in?
video Skype.
no
Yeah.
FaceTime. Yeah.
You don't have to wear pants. It's fine. We're not going to see you below your waist.
Jesus. What's the next one? Colin, this is the ball's in your court.
I'm
bud.
so sorry. There are some characters that would definitely suffer from having their LGBTQ status taken away. For example, Batwoman. But others seem like they wouldn't be impacted as much. Wonder Woman. Do you agree? What other characters do you think are stronger because of their orientation / wouldn't suffer if they were written as straight?
See, I think she mentions Wonder Woman in there. I think it would be a detriment to Wonder Woman's character if that aspect of her was taken away, just because it's so, like we were saying, it feels so natural for her, and it's not a big deal.
No,
I think if they were like, no, Wonder Woman is like crazy straight, that would just feel weird.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for her character.
straight.
I mean,
yeah,
the straightest.
the straightest. I mean, sure, she loves Steve Trevor, but like,
Does she though?
And the reality of the comics too is that for a very, very, very long time there was the Comics Code Authority. You couldn't explicitly have gay characters or gay couples or whatever in comic books. But like William Moulton Marston was polyamorous and
loved some BDSM action.
well, yeah, that as well. And then just like sort of just embraced more of like a spectrum of sexuality. So it's all through like the original Golden Age comics.
yeah.
And since you brought it up with the bondage thing, like there's a panel from an old Golden Age Wonder Woman comic where she's binding another
I
Amazon,
saw that.
and it's basically like, I can't remember how it's described, but it's essentially, it's not about like humiliation or things like that. It's just like, this is like, it's like a safety, like a security thing. He had like a different view of bondage from just the dom sub kind of thing. There was like an element of,
But the guy that created Wonder Woman was into BDSM.
well, that's William Moulton Marston.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm trying to think of a queer character that would like it wouldn't matter. I mean, like in Marvel, sure, if Iceman wasn't gay, who cares? He's still one of the most boring characters in Marvel.
He's just ice.
Yeah, he's a guy that can make ice.
Right.
He's a snow cone machine that knows how to punch things.
Cool.
True.
But like
They cast that perfectly.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I can think. So you said you don't think that would actually be a detriment.
Not really. Like it wouldn't matter one way or the other. Like it's not.
I don't know that I can think of a character that I know is gay in DC.
Yeah.
That if they weren't, it wouldn't like cause them, like it wouldn't be like a detriment. Like
it's part of the problem with there not being a lot of queer characters to begin with is like a lot of it is pretty integral to their personality.
Yeah. That's an interesting. I would say, just because it's underutilized, there's a character called Wotan, who's the arch enemy of Dr. Fate.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Wotan's the arch enemy of Dr. Fate, and Wotan has the ability to like direct their own like reincarnation, and so has reincarnated as women,
sure,
and as men.
Yeah.
So I don't think has ever been like explicitly like referred to as like gender fluid or like sexually attracted, to people in a fluid way, but technically has existed as both. But that's so underutilized and so like almost unspoken that I think if you just didn't address it anymore, that wouldn't necessarily feel like it altered the character or anything like that. But that's maybe the only one I can think of. It's just because they didn't explore it enough.
And Loki's kind of done this, like in Marvel. Like Loki has been a woman a couple of times, and it's kind of like, I don't know, for Loki, it kind of makes sense because he's like a very fluid character as well, and like less so in the filmatic version, but even then, like there's still a bit of fluidity to what's his name, Hiddleston, Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah.
Isn't Thor currently a woman right now?
It was Jane Foster, but like that's the thing where like whoever can hold whatever the hammer's called, Mjolnir, can be Thor as long as they're worthy, and it was his girlfriend, former girlfriend that was also dying of cancer, that has now died of cancer. Spoiler alert. Every time she used every time she turned into Thor, she got that much closer to dying.
Oh, that's such a sad
it's fucking brutal.
Story.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
So like
I don't want to read that.
And Thor just like had an axe instead of his hammer.
Right.
But it wasn't like the character. It wasn't the issue of like one character, like a character changing genders or whatever.
Right.
It was
It
just
wasn't like Highlander. You didn't have to just have the one.
there's not just one running around.
Can you think of any characters that you've encountered, Richard, or even you, Colin, in the limited reading you've done?
Yeah, I'm not a big reader.
Can you think of any that you read and you were like, oh, you're gay? Like that, like it surprised you, or you thought like it was sort of like extra, like added onto the character and not actually like integral?
Well, I mean, so that brings up the question where we talked about if you'd taken away this from them, what would it change? The problem is if you put enough of an emphasis on their sexuality, like at that point, are you just doing it for the purpose of having that character be gay? Like shouldn't I mean, at a certain point, should it like, can that just be a thing about the character? Because like if you take it away, it should technically not change anything, because that shouldn't have that big of an impact on the character as who they are as a person, right? I mean, that's just sexual preference in a lot of cases.
Right. I mean, I see what you're saying, right? Like, I guess maybe like the end game would be that you just write characters as characters.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good that it's happening, and I think the inclusion is important. But at a certain point, it's just like, I think there's a fine line that you can.
We're just not there yet, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So then, are you saying like kind of the same thing that I am? That maybe there aren't that many characters whose sexuality is just like also there, like they're all kind of written basically for the purpose of representation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the way it feels to me right now, and that's I think all of them are surprising and frustrating because it's like it's a big deal about that. So
yeah, sorry, you've got.
Well,
one?
yeah, there are definitely two superheroes that I remember kind of being impacted throughout my childhood that were kind of explicitly written for the purposes of the fact that they were the ambiguously gay duo.
I was gonna say the Wonder Twins.
Yeah, no, the ambiguously gay duo from Saturday Night Live.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you find that out after watching many of these episodes?
I was like 10.
What does the G stand for?
That's a weird way to fly.
I was quite young when that was a thing on TV.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
Can't believe we've made it 63 episodes in, and only now the ambiguously gay duo is coming up.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think other than Wotan, I can't really think of
Wotan.
Every time you say Wotan, I think about like Keanu Reeves having like a rap posse.
Wotan. Oh my God. It's a duo with Keanu Reeves and Tan France from Queer Eye.
Perfect. Not a weird image.
Or a surfer version of Tan. Where it's, whoa, Tan.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
Anyways. I'm going to keep bringing up Queer Eye for like episodes to come. So
the Dr. Queer Eye
every once in a while, Owen Wilson shows up. Anyways, the Nerd Fawns asks, how do you feel about some of the older stories that handled gay characters and the evolution of that handling over the years? Green Lantern number 154 and number 155 featured a story wherein Kyle Rayner's friend Terry Berg is a victim of gay bashing on a physical level when he's hospitalized for his sexuality. I ask because when the topic came up in the past, it was to address only major issues such as gay bashing, AIDS, etc., whereas now gay characters are just portrayed as they should be, as a regular part of the universe.
So that's interesting, because the Nerd Funds is basically saying the opposite of what you just mentioned. So
you're wrong. So next question.
Next. So Andrew, when you're reading comics, does it matter as a reader if it doesn't come off as just like, oh, and they happen to also be queer? Does it frustrate you if every queer character feels like they are the one making the statement about queer characters, or is it just more important that they're out there?
It's more important that they're out there. Like, it's just important that there's representation, and like there's definitely not enough. Like, if you think just on a pure numbers basis, like statistically speaking, there should be way more queer characters in comics than there is.
Totally. Yeah.
Like, you're telling me in all of the Justice League, like, and its variants, there's just like, they're like, no, we're all just super hetero. Like, no, statistically,
there's a lot of tight pants there.
Yeah. Like, that's just like, either this is a weird dice roll, or like a couple of you have secrets, but like, I mean, there definitely could stand to be some more representation out there. And it's nice that they don't shy away from it, especially because they did used to always frame it around like, oh, this character is gay and they also have AIDS.
Yeah.
Like it's always one, but then the other, as opposed to like this character is gay, and they're also like super good at fist fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I certainly don't feel like every single story featuring a gay character is about them being gay. Like,
No.
I think the Nerd Funds is right that way, that there's more sort of breadth of storytelling for gay characters.
Because I think now they're starting to know, either they're having queer writers or they're starting to understand how to write that better, as opposed to like, it was for a long time. It was like, because it was always that thing of like, this character is gay. So there's probably something wrong. And we need to focus on that, as opposed to now they're just like, it's a part of their life.
Yeah. As for like the evolution over time, I mean, we talked about Wonder Woman. So like William Moulton Marston basically like snuck his views on sexuality and things like that into comics that like where you could not explicitly state those things. And then there's lots of there became more and more comics that were just dealing with a specific social issue, and then you wouldn't see that character again. Be like, you're gay, so we could talk about this.
Yeah, they're introduced just as a talking point and then swept under the rug again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then if you go like over to like the Vertigo line, like some of those like more like mature themed comics, like a series like the Doom Patrol, Grant Morrison introduced a version of a Doom Patrol character.
That's trans, right?
Well,
there's a trans character in Doom Patrol.
There is a trans character. Yeah. Her name is Coagula.
Yeah, right.
And then there's another character that was a hermaphrodite called Rebus.
Right.
And basically Rebus was like a merger of
Rebus McIntyre.
I like every time Rich comes in, which is just like, I've got a pun. I got to play.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to run with
just zingers for
guys. That's all I'm here for.
Yeah, it was a merger of like the Negative Man, who was like an original Doom Patrol member, and this woman named Eleanor Poole, and I think like some other like. Well, it was the Negative Man spirit, and then Larry Trainor and Eleanor Poole. So had like both sets of like genitals, and had all three memories of like the Negative Man and Larry Trainor and Eleanor Poole. So Rebus was another character of like different sexuality, and I think by the time you got into the 80s, and especially in those Vertigo comics, I think they kind of pushed it. You talked about Sandman before.
Yeah,
like there's definitely some exploration of those things in there.
But see, the interesting thing is like it's always relegated to the more mature line, right?
Yeah.
Like because, and we're still seeing that now, wherein like, and we see it a lot in the States, and we're going to start seeing it in Ontario, is this idea of like, you can't provide this sort of education to children. You can't provide sex ed, or you can't talk about sexuality with children, where in actuality, that's where that conversation needs to start. Is like, you can be queer, you can fall in these different spectrums in terms of sexuality and or gender, and it's fine. It's not a big deal, but because we've made it into this larger deal, and then we do these like this pearl clutching where it's like, well, you can have a queer character, but they've got to be on Vertigo. You know, they can't be on the one that any kid can buy. They've got to be able to show ID to read a story where one character might be gay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and comics in general like have skewed older, right?
Sure.
Like there aren't a ton of kid comics. You know, like comic books in general, if you bought Batman or Superman or whatever, they were for kids before. Now they're like those titles, Superman and Batman, are like for teens.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of violence and things like that. So even if you put them in those main books, you still like skewed the demographic like older.
Yeah. It is interesting, eh? Like, well, because they're sort of just, it's like comics grew up with us and now they're not being made for it. Cause like I started reading comics when I was quite young. I started reading Spider-Man. I probably was like 10 or 11.
Right.
And that was like in the early 90s.
Spider-Man very famously about like burgeoning sexuality.
Yeah. Like he's basically goes through like rapid puberty.
Yeah.
As onset by the bite of a radioactive spider.
Yeah. Like the rest of us.
Sure. How we all went through puberty.
Classic.
Yeah. And now there's a character named Silk that they're talking about making a movie about, who is like this classmate of Peter Parker that happened to also be bitten by a spider that day.
Oh my God.
But then was like put in a bunker.
What?
For like 20 years. And then has just like
That's
been
awesome.
introduced to comics. And now Sony's talking about making a Silk movie.
What?
And she's also Korean. I think she's either Korean or Vietnamese American.
Okay.
So it's like, they're going to do a diversity movie.
Right.
And she's an interesting character, but it is funny. They're like, where somebody else is like, I also got bitten by a spider.
Guys? I mean, you guys were shitting on how many members of the Bat family there are, but I've got to say,
Spider-Man.
there's a lot of spiders.
They're literally
Who is
making
Ben Reilly? who is
He's the Scarlet
Spider-Man
Spider.
2099.
He's
there's
the
that
Spider-Man of 2099.
What's that? The new animated Spider-Man movie.
Well, that's literally about all the Spider-Man.
Yeah.
getting
Yeah,
together.
and isn't there a Spider-Verse? Like,
Yeah.
isn't there a whole like a multiverse that's only connected through people who happen
which
to
has a
have
lot of
spider
cool characters
powers?
in it. So one of the characters is Spider-Gwen, which is Gwen Stacy.
Mhm.
If she became
Spider-Gwen's
Spider-Man
awesome.
instead of Peter Parker, and Peter Parker becomes a lizard and then dies, and she has a lot of
okay.
guilt about that. So then she's Spider-Gwen, and she's in a punk rock band with Mary Jane, and it's awesome. It's like the greatest fucking
Gwen
book.
Stacy is like, isn't there also a Gwen Pool? Like,
Yeah,
there's a lot
like
of Gwen Stacy
Deadpool.
stuff out there.
Yeah, Marvel has gotten a little bit crazy with their like. I mean, Deadpool sucks, anyways.
Hot take.
Ooh,
Yeah,
drop the mic.
I would really like to be the guy who gets to make that Silk movie because it would just be that whole day of them at the lab and she's just in the background like scratching her arm like guys.
yeah.
And the main focus is still him, but it's
Still
shot as
yeah,
her
yeah,
as the
yeah.
main focus.
That's really funny. I just think like the big.
Just insert her into the footage from the Sam Raimi movies with Tobey Maguire.
They can't help
Oh
but
my
still
God,
focus
that's
on the
amazing.
straight white dude in the room. Yeah.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
She's like, oh, things are changing. I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on. But
She'd
just
be-
passive aggressively in the
Into the
background.
bunker.
Yeah, she becomes an arguably more interesting character, and they're like, yeah, but still,
We need
there's a
to make
cishet
this
white
guy.
dude over here.
I mean,
that,
they do call it Spider-Man
Yeah.
for a reason.
Sorry.
Wow.
But he was a
I don't know if I answered the question. I forget what the question
I
was.
mean, I think we kind of touched on it. Like, I basically, I think the point is
Well,
that
why is Midnighter so fucking cool?
no, a few ago.
Okay.
does Midnighter
good.
drive a
Did you
Trans
fall
Am?
asleep?
Sorry.
Does Midnighter drive like an El Camino or a Trans
You
Am or
should.
something? Yeah, that feels like that should be part of Midnighter's character.
Yeah,
Or like
actually,
like an
Trans Am
old,
would
like,
fit.
I don't know why
Harley.
I'm thinking of Midnighter as being like Burt Reynolds. I have no idea why, but if I would,
I'm okay with that.
I never want to see Midnighter in a comic book because it's going to
It's
break
never
the
gonna be
illusion.
Burt Reynolds,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. Midnighter has to run a bunch of warm
Drives a
Coors
Prius.
50 states over.
You could do like Midnighter Rider.
Midnighter run.
Midnighter Run. Yeah.
Like
Oh, mid-
Midnighter Rider, yeah.
So you want it to be Hasselhoff?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, Knight Rider. I was thinking Midnight Run.
but I'm okay with that as well.
Yeah, either way. It's a mashup of Midnight Run and Knight Rider.
Oh my god.
So I hope that answered
So
the
it's
question.
Hasselhoff
Yeah.
with a beautiful
I hope
mustache.
we answered whatever question it is we were trying to answer.
Yeah, I mean, we basically we
Well,
touched
we
on it.
just,
He's pretty much just talking about like how the representation of gay characters.
Right.
Like, I think we have gotten to the point where there are gay characters and there are stories where their sexuality is not at the forefront.
And I think part of that is because comics are starting to actually hire
Yes.
writers other than like just straight white dude writers. And I think like that's the change we really need to see is like more people of color, more queer people, more, whatever writing comics. Because then you're actually going to get like nuanced and interesting representation as opposed to like a bunch of suits being like, what if we made Iceman gay?
Yeah.
We need to have one.
I don't understand why it's only just young white boys who like
Yeah.
comic books. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that might have answered the ex-Doctor 91's question. He says, do you feel that there has been enough representation in DC?
No.
Next question.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, so here's the thing too.
That is how Instagram questions should be, by the way.
Compared it to Marvel, I mean, there's a lot of things to be said if DC's got better representation than Marvel does.
Well, this is tough because obviously neither of us really read both.
Yeah.
Yes.
But from what I've seen,
from
like
different worlds.
what we,
We're from different.
We're star-crossed
worlds.
lovers.
yeah, and yet we get.
Oh my god, is this
Are you
finally happening?
blushing?
Yeah.
But like the stuff I've seen online seems to me that Marvel fans have, or
That's not what I'm looking at online.
a certain group of Marvel fans seem to view the increased like diversity.
You know how Marvel fans drive like
What I'm trying to say is that a certain
the anti-SJW.
yeah, exactly.
sure.
But they seem to view like all of the moves that Marvel has made, with like Riri Williams as Ironheart, like taking
Yeah.
over for Tony Stark, or Jane Foster taking over as Thor, or
Miles Morales being the more interesting version of Spider-Man.
exactly
Yeah.
all of those. They sort of see them all
Donald Glover.
as just like corporate like diversity moves.
Yeah.
As a like, have you
But
felt
that's-
that way from a story perspective? Do you feel like it's only
Not at all, because I'm
Yeah.
not a straight white dude. But it's
That's
also
what I
like,
suspected. But
and it's
yeah.
it's funny how like everybody views adding another seat to the table as somehow taking their seat away.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that which is like the real problem, right?
That being
Like,
said, Colin, get out.
there are too many seats at this
too many
table.
straight white dudes in this room. but it's, you know, I think a lot of it is that backlash, right? Of like, so what if there's a black teen version of Iron Man that is Ironheart or whatever Riri's character is called, and like, it's an interesting story. It's a different character. It doesn't, nobody's like gone back and erased Tony Stark from existence. It doesn't take away from that. It just adds to, and that's the problem, right? Is like everybody views being inclusive and having a more like nuanced view of gender and sexuality as being like, now they're removing something. And people of color too. Like there's not a lot of people of color in comics. And the more they start adding them, you know, people view it as that like, oh, they're trying to shove diversity down our throat. They're just trying to provide superheroes for other people.
The big one in DC was the new Wally West, the like younger black Wally West that they introduced in the New 52. Yeah. So much so that now the original Wally West is also in continuity. So you have like the Ginge classic Wally West and the
everybody
black.
Wants to be able to see themselves on the screen or on the page, and everybody other than straight white dudes don't always necessarily get that chance.
So now they're getting taken away.
Yeah. So here's the crazy thing to me, somebody who's not all that in tune with comic books all the time.
You?
Wow.
That was awesome.
Holy shit. That was
we
good.
planned that.
That was so
Minute
good.
58. Hit it.
That was the greatest harmony I've ever heard.
My thing is that there's so many bullshit explanations for everything under the sun that like if a character is gay or gets rewritten as like black or something like that, like why is that so much harder to believe to massive comic book fans than like Speed Force?
Well, yeah,
like what the fuck?
That's true. Between time travel and people coming back from the dead and that, I mean,
like, that's hard to believe.
Entrenched racism.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Entrenched bigotry by and large. Like bigotry, they don't even fully recognize because a lot of them would be like, a lot of those conversations are like, I'm not racist, but, or I'm not sexist, but, or I'm not homophobic, but. I mean, whenever you say that, like, steel yourself.
You are a homophobic,
you're about to hear some bad
it.
shit.
Yeah.
And like, it's a lot of that stuff where they don't necessarily realize their own biases so much. They just don't like seeing other people be given the same opportunities as them. But they don't even see it that way. But that's what it is. It's giving opportunities for, you know, Riri Williams is Ironheart. Like, she's a teen, she's a smart teen black girl that got given a bunch of Iron Man gear when Tony Stark went away.
Yeah.
And like, that's cool. Like,
God, I really, really hope that they make what's her name from
Miss
Wakanda.
Marvel? Oh,
Sherry,
yeah. Fuck, I really hope they
who isn't
make
a character that
make...
exists in the comics as far as I know, but I never read a lot of Black Panther.
No, she didn't. And god damn, do I want her to become Iron Man?
Yeah.
Oh, like kill Tony in Avengers 4.
They're totally
the armor.
They're totally like she can fight. They're setting it up. Like Downey's got to go. I mean, come on. Oh my god,
that would be awesome.
It would be awesome just because it like it gives somebody else an opportunity to see themselves
down with Downey
on the screen or on the page or when you're playing a video game or whatever. It's you finally get an opportunity to see yourself. Like I'm a transgender person. I almost never get to see myself represented in media at all, right? Like, and when I was growing up and when I was trying to figure it out and when I was struggling with it, you don't have that metric, right? And the same for if you're a queer person and there's not a lot of queer representation in comics and you read a lot of comics, you don't get to like identify with it necessarily. You're always one step removed.
No wonder you're so good at those character creators in video games.
No wonder I spent so much time on that. Yeah. Spent 4 hours playing Fallout 4 before I got into the vault. Yeah.
So let me flip this question around then, because we talked briefly about that Brooklyn Nine-Nine thing. You said that
99
as you were coming out, that story was happening on TV.
Yeah, sure. I came out.
Was there anything in comics as you were reading with which you could like identify a bit or anything like in that journey?
I thought of it,
or was it totally separate?
Yeah, I know. It's funny you mentioned this because I was thinking about it on the drive up and like definitely reading Saga and reading the trans and I can't remember her name for the life of me.
I can't either.
But there's a trans woman in Saga. I can not remember almost any of their names. And she is trans and it's not really made a big deal, but she's also like super badass.
Right.
For a long time when I was like thinking of it and struggling with it and I was like, well, if I come out, do I lose all the parts of myself that I like, or do I lose anything interesting or cool about myself, quote unquote, interesting, cooler about myself? And then I remember reading that and I was like, she's just fucking cool. And I was like, well, maybe that's it. Like maybe you can still do it and still be fucking cool.
Yeah.
It's really weird though to hear her speak in real life and then hear her on the TV show.
Oh yeah, Stephanie Beatrice. Yeah, she has such a different voice than
it's the weirdest.
Rosa.
She's totally
like. But watching that and like watching her come out to her family, and I think I had already come out to I started coming out in November, and I think I told my family pretty close after like a good couple of weeks after. So it would have been early November. So I think I came out before she did on the show, but I had like shades
early
of
November.
That.
Good band.
Early November. That's a band?
That is a good band.
Yeah.
Early November?
It's the early November.
You're hitting me in my emo feels.
I know. Yeah. It's an emo band from
is this like a Taking Back Sunday sort of thing?
around the same time.
Like
yeah.
the Promise Ring?
Post Promise Ring.
Post Promise Ring. Sure.
Yeah. Sorry, keep going.
I was a teen.
That was important to say.
I grew up in the early 1990s and 2000s. I remember emo.
Yeah. Sorry.
I own the Get Up Kids records on vinyl.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was important that I had to cut you.
You cut off the important coming out story.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really remember.
For a good band name.
I know. Yeah.
Sorry. Ugh. Why are we so
Colin's
awful?
upset.
Colin's usually upset. It's
Yeah,
okay.
sure. But yeah, I remember sort of watching that and like being able to sort of see an analog with myself, and that was kind of the first time I could really do that. Like, and it's different. Like, she came us by. I was coming out as trans to my family, but still, like, it's still that same process, and you can still sort of like see how difficult that is, and how relieving it is when certain people accept you, and how difficult it is when some people maybe push back.
Right.
Her dad, played by Danny Trejo, which was an amazing casting.
That was a great episode.
I loved that episode so much, and it was like that show is great because it like actually like has heart and like cares about other people, and it can still be funny.
Yeah.
Bob's Burgers does the same thing where like it's funny and it's never at somebody else's expense, which is a really hard thing to pull off. But yeah, it's like there's so few opportunities for a lot of people to see themselves represented in media that, you know, the more chances we get, the better off it's definitely going to be.
Yeah, totally.
Well,
again, I don't know if I answered any question.
No, that completely answers it. The answer is no, there's not enough.
There's definitely needs to be more, but like it's getting better. Yeah. And part of that is just because they've started hiring more inclusively. And whether that's a mandated thing from the company when it's or not, it's still diversity is like the ultimate thing. Right?
Yeah.
You need diversity to make anything interesting.
Hell yes.
Agreed.
And on that note, the Dr. DC podcast will be back after this quick. Hey, residents. It's producer Richard here. Just wanted to take a quick break in the middle of this podcast to talk about our amazing sponsors, Great Lakes Grooming Co. Just want to talk to you about a couple of different products that I actually use almost every day. I just used a peppermint lime lip balm. It's awesome for chapped dry lips. It smells really good. You don't get that weird sort of like thick goopiness that you get from some chapsticks. It's great. It's super affordable and definitely something that I cannot sort of exist without. The air is very dry up here and I definitely need a lip balm all the time. The other product is the Noble Selves hair styling cream. I've got pretty thick hair and I tend to have a hard time finding hair products that work really well. Either they're too thick and they get sort of like stiff in my hair and feel really hard or whatever, or they don't hold strong enough. And then I have to put a ton of it into it. So it becomes expensive as well. This has like a medium to light hold, but honestly, it's got a super soft feel and it actually does the job that it needs to do. It holds my hair in whatever position kind of I want to put it in. It's perfect for everyday use and casual styles. It is a water-based styler. You're not getting a ton of those terrible chemicals that you would with some of the off-the-shelf stuff. But because of that, it washes out super, super easy. Great Lakes Grooming is meant to be easy to use, ready, rain or shine. It's one of the only like sort of styling companies that I actually can continuously go back to, and it's something that I used before we even got a sponsorship. All their products are purposely designed and environmentally responsible in Canada. So if you're here, great, much less shipping. If not, it's totally worth the cost, and it's actually super affordable. If you're from America, you got that American dollar, so it'll even cheaper for you to buy. But they like to say it's ready for adventure wherever one may find themselves. So whether you're where we are, up in the Great Canadian North, or down in the American South, wherever it may be, you guys can definitely count on these products to be great, no matter how you need to use them. And for you lucky residents, we have a 10% off that Great Lakes Grooming is going to offer on any regular priced products. All you have to do is go to their website, www.greatlakesgrooming.com, and just use the promo code DRDC podcast. So remember that website again, www.greatlakesgrooming.com, and just use the promo code DRDC and then just podcast. Now back to the show.
All right, so we've got some emails.
We're also back.
Seamless.
I'm just getting to see behind the curtain. This is
This is the best produced podcast in this house.
There's a lot of dust back here. Kirkland Green asks, you've mentioned the characters
Great
of
name.
Coagula
It just makes me think of lettuce from...
offhand
Sorry, keep going.
on a past episode. Wondering if you could explain more about the character as an example of LGBT inclusion in comics.
Is that the one you're talking about that has the three minds in
Well,
the
no,
one body?
so that's Rebus, but Rebus is actually connected to Coagula's origin. So Coagula is a trans woman.
Yeah.
And a prostitute, and then one night has sex with Rebus, and the like radioactive negative man form comes out, and then that gives her superpowers. So
she becomes suddenly
So
a
she's-
very
hold on.
sexualized Roman
Can
Can I
empire.
ask, when you say comes out?
yeah. Well, I think you're meant to use your imagination.
Yeah,
Don't
sure.
realize
Yeah.
a bit.
When the radioactive part of him comes out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stratis,
Or on,
you're
as the
blushing.
case may be.
Yeah.
God damn it. Yeah, so she's a trans woman.
Not gonna
and
have babies
she-
that way.
And she has sex with a radioactive hermaphrodite and then gets the superpower where she can
Classic story, sure. Yeah.
turn solids into liquids and liquids into solids.
So it had something to do with the way that she was created.
It's like when Harry met
Well,
Sally.
but so literally her power is not changing the essence of what something is, but changing its outward form. Like
Wow.
her power is literally the trans
Yeah.
experience, right? Because water turning to ice, it's still the same thing. It's just changed.
It's changed its shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was always water.
So she's a super important character that way because both her as a character is trans and her power also it embodies that. And there's a story in Doom Patrol that I don't remember what the issues are, but it's called the Tiresias Wars. And basically there are these otherworldly kind of beings who are all about they think that the world is is too rigid or something like that, and she basically saves the day by saying no, I was able to change my form to match who I am. Her existence basically stops them from wiping out the earth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
and this story is probably from maybe the 90s. But
Sure. I'm surprised she's a sex worker in the comic too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is Doom Patrol was a Vertigo title then, I
sure,
think, so
yeah.
that was partly why. But I mean, she doesn't show up that much, so I think she's probably hugely important, but maybe underknown, certainly underrepresented. I think she maybe only appears in max 30 issues
Sure.
of anything.
But she's part of the Doom Patrol, whatever Doom Patrol is.
Yeah, and the Doom Patrol was a good fit because they're people that have powers, but they view themselves as outsiders or outcast, or that they don't that people won't.
They're the
accept
goth
them.
kids who smoke behind the school.
Yeah.
Well, their whole thing is that they don't feel accepted. I think Cliff Steele is Robot Man.
me.
Yeah, Cliff Steele is Robot Man. He's a human brain in a robot body, and he thinks he's a monster. And so I think there's an element of that too that maybe plays in.
Right. And the character's name is Coagula?
Coagula, yeah.
Not Caligula?
In her first use of her powers, she fights a villain named Codpiece who has this codpiece full of gadgets and things like that.
Oh my God.
And she gets close enough to him to touch his codpiece and melts it.
But what about all the tools inside?
You could do with that what you will. But yeah, I mean, I wish Coagula would come back. She sort of was a short-lived character and then
Right.
was sort of unceremoniously killed in a different issue.
Sure,
but,
that sounds about right.
right.
Yeah.
But I think
Inclusivity only goes so far.
yeah. I think for her brief time, it's a pretty interesting run, an interesting
Right.
story.
Huh.
I would definitely recommend reading it. It's one of my favorite comic book stories of all time. Is the Tiresias Wars.
I'll have to
it's
look
really
that up
great.
on Comixology.
That's where I got it.
Hey, if we
Use
say it, if we say it,
promo code.
I was gonna say if we say that 3 times.
Yeah.
We'll benefit from it. So
Yeah, I fucking read comics. I load up every Wednesday morning, new comic book day.
So do I. Comicsology is master.
That
Comicsology is lord.
sure is nifty.
And it pairs nicely with a Dr. DC podcast out on Wednesdays.
only on Brain Freeze Podcast Network.
.com.
Sponsored by McDonald's.
Oh God, that's the sponsor we need to get.
The book, the movie, the game.
Next email is from Trevor.
Oh, Trevor, good.
Classic Trevor.
We gotta stop shitting on fans for using their name.
Yeah, Trevor.
Where's the rest of your name?
Trevor.
In an interview for Solo, Donald Glover said that he couldn't imagine why anyone in space wouldn't be pansexual because there are so many aliens and gender act as species probably wouldn't matter.
Is that a question or a statement?
There is a question in there if you continue.
Yeah, this is the...
Oh, good one. I'm not done yet.
Hence why the quotes didn't end it.
Keeping you hanging on for more. Does the same logic apply to DC? With so many demons and aliens and other beings, do you think that there is more room for pansexuality in comics?
The question is, y'all be fucking?
Very, yeah. That's what that question is.
That's
We be
interesting.
fucking.
Is there a character that we would be able to label as? Does everybody know what being pansexual means?
Well,
Me dumb explain.
yes. Why don't you
So
take us
to
through
be
it?
pansexual is just that your
I
sexual
really like having
preference
sex with
is-
Captain Hook.
is every yeah.
I'm sorry. No, I'm not.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Or nice friends.
Yeah.
I wouldn't yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say I wouldn't say I'm nice, but then I was like, "Are you even talking about me?" So to be pansexual is just to have like no real. You have no sexual preference one way or the other. You're down for whatever. You're into straight men. You're into queer men. You're into trans people. You're into women. You're into robots.
So it's
you're
more
into-
about just whatever connection.
yeah. You're
make, right?
like attracted to emotional connection, not physical body.
Yeah. So I mean,
And Lando Calrissian has been retconned as being pansexual, which makes
clearly.
fucking total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is. I mean, Captain Kirk.
Because he fucks.
Captain Kirk was
He's
not
DT.
pansexual.
Yeah.
Him and
Yeah.
Prince.
Because Captain Kirk was specifically finding the females of different species to have sex with.
Yeah.
For science.
Sure. But yeah, like Lando and in Star Wars, yeah, I agree. I think because there's just so much out there, I think you sort of by nature, if you lived in that world, I would hope would be pansexual.
It would be so limiting to be like, yeah, I'm interacting with a million different species.
Yeah.
What I'm really in is white dudes. Yeah.
Human.
Yeah. I'm really into most of these space white people that sometimes have British accents and sometimes do not.
Yeah, exactly.
You better speak English too.
I think in DC the best example.
It's galactic based.
Yeah.
I think in DC the best example is John Constantine.
Yeah. Constantine's probably the only one that is like, but is he pansexual or would he be bisexual?
This is a good question, but I
Because it's not
think,
really
he fucking
explored,
demons?
right?
but see, this is the thing. I think
It's a goddamn demon
I think
fucker.
he has to have at some point
He's probably fucked a demon.
a demon or
Oh,
an
fuck him
angel
right
or
up.
something, even if they've taken the form of a like I have to, in my heart of hearts, John Constantine is pansexual to me.
Well, he's
but-
kind of like if Lando was a like multi British dude,
yeah. If Lando was
or Keanu Reeves.
if
in that
Lando
movie,
was
yeah.
80s Sting and a sorcerer.
yeah. If he had a penchant for trench coats, he like it would make sense for his character. I don't know if he's like explicitly ever.
Yeah.
He is. They just haven't written the stories where he has sex with a demon.
Possibly.
But like even if you're banging the Martian Manhunter,
right.
like you would
Yeah.
have to kind of be pansexual.
It's funny that you brought that up because my other thing is I don't know that they've explored it a lot, but for shapeshifters, like how do they view themselves, right?
Yeah.
Like do they view themselves as like whatever
they're
sort
a
of-
living spectrum.
Yeah.
Does it blow your mind, Colin?
No.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean I don't know what that
dick.
if you're a shapeshifter and you're the Martian Manhunter, but then you go undercover as a woman,
Yeah.
I don't know if he would view himself as wholly changed into a woman or as I'm male disguised as woman.
Sure.
Or I don't think that's been explored enough. Yeah, I would be interested in seeing like shapeshifter, seeing that explored that way. 'cause-
I'm actually surprised they haven't explored that, given like
Yeah.
today's climate of like being pretty open to talking about these sort of things. Is that they haven't like it would be like has Wonder Woman ever gone gotten down with gone down? Has she ever has she ever gone down on Martian Manhunter?
Yikes.
Gone down with a sickness.
Have they ever drawn that issue?
I'm sure somebody on the internet has drawn that issue.
That fanfic definitely
Back in the
exists.
70s, Jack Kirby drew
But, like,
Wonder Woman going down on Martian.
So does Martian Manhunter have relations with people? I don't know. I just know him as a character. I've never read a book with him in it.
He does. Yeah, I mean, he does, and he often takes the form of Detective John Jones, who used to be white, now I think is predominantly black.
Sure.
But maybe a different example, Red Tornado is an android with like an elemental spirit living inside.
Yeah.
And there was a whole series where he was trying to have like a normal nuclear family. So this was like, he had like a wife and like her kids, and he was trying to have a nuclear family, but was like not human, not specifically male, but like,
Sure.
How did those kids come
again, I think it was a missed opportunity. They didn't like explore it from the gender side. They just explored it as like, what if a robot wanted to be more like us?
Yeah,
Like,
it's like a really shitty Twilight Zone thing.
yeah, kind of. It was more like that.
Also,
but-
did all these superheroes get their name by what's your porn star name? Like choose a color and your biggest fear, and that's your superhero name.
Red Tornado.
Yeah, Red Tornado, Black Lightning,
Blue Ocean.
Blue Ocean, Blue Crush.
Oh, Blue Crush.
That's just a good movie.
Clear Pepsi.
I'm terrified of the Pepsi Cola company
I can't take another
and everything
Pepsi Crystal.
and everything they represent.
Yeah.
Also, if you want to see my artwork for Wonder Woman going down on Martian Manhunter, please visit my DeviantArt website.
Yeah. Jesus.
Where are we going now?
So
Never a dull
I guess my
moment.
question with that was whether Martian Manhunter like chooses a form that his partner would prefer, or whether he chooses a form that he prefers.
I suspect I think he would choose a form that his partner would prefer, because even his superhero form isn't his true Martian form. Like the way he looks, even when he's green,
Yeah.
is like a more anthropomorphized
Really?
version of what a Martian would look like.
Right.
He does that to like, because
Seem
when
normal, yeah.
he first shows
Not
up
to
on
freak out
Earth,
the normies,
he's accidentally teleported to Earth. That's the first time he comes to Earth, and the first person that sees him is Dr. Saul Erdel, who sees him and has a heart attack, and
So he's
dies.
like, yeah, not going to do that
So
again.
I think
Yeah.
he like tries to fit in,
Yeah.
humanize
quote, unquote.
himself
Yeah,
a little
exactly.
bit.
What better way to fit in than be a white dude?
Hey, man.
Yeah.
Just staying safe out there.
Welcome, sir. The door is unlocked for you.
Yes.
Turn the lights
Which
out.
one? Oh, all of them.
Yeah.
Turn the
we're
lights
going.
out when you leave if
Yeah.
you don't mind.
Yes. All right, where are we going now?
Oh, we're going to Reddit.
Yes.
Oh, what's Reddit like?
What is going on Reddit?
Well, apparently people get sad and make the best names
Yes, they do.
for their handle.
I love this name, actually.
Burned out IT guy.
Oh wow.
We're here for you. man.
Amen. Been there.
Yeah, get these headphones work.
I'm sorry, sir. What does he have to say?
I always love hearing you rip on other people and then shit on me when I do it. Are there any
Go fuck
gay
yourself.
villains in the DC universe?
Gay villains.
The Joker?
The Joker would make sense to be pansexual, and I think
Yes.
he's had definitely leanings of.
I would not be surprised if they like explicitly said the Joker was pansexual
Yeah.
or bisexual or something like that. Yeah. Speaking of pansexual, actually, there's a great villain example. So there's a pair of villains called the Brain and Monsieur Mala. The Brain is literally a brain in like a robotic jar with
Yeah.
like arms and that, and he's French. And
Oh.
Monsieur Mala is a super intelligent gorilla, and they're in love with each other. And they're super villains. They were part of the Brotherhood of
I don't even
Evil.
know what you would call that.
They were enemies of the Doom
yeah.
Patrol. And,
Brain sexual.
Yeah, well, there you go.
but yeah, the Brain and Monsieur Mala are like technically pansexual because one is a brain in a jar and one's a gorilla.
Will they ever find?
Thank
love?
you for doing it. Oh, you got to it first.
It's like an odd fetish.
Yeah, that's interesting. But I'm trying to think of like other gay villains.
Scandal Savage, the daughter of Vandal Savage.
Sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
You know how you have to name your kid in a rhyme scheme?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she's in a relationship with another female villain called Knockout.
And what a knockout.
Right?
She's
And
she's a soft
And
sex,
actually,
yeah.
there's a whole story, like much to the chagrin of Vandal Savage. He wants her to sire like an heir,
Sure. Yeah.
and she's a lesbian, doesn't want to do that. The Pied Piper is a Flash villain who has like a mind control ability tied to playing the flute.
Yeah.
But he's sort of reformed. He's more of a hero now, but he was a villain for a long time and is gay.
So there is some.
Yeah.
Is there any this is a total sidetrack from this, but I'm just curious about it. Is there any asexual characters where they just have like zero sexual preference or desire at all?
Offhand, that I can think of, aside from something that would be like inorganic, like a robot or something that, I can't think of one.
They're all pretty horny.
The thing that's coming to mind is Jughead from Archie
Sure,
Comics.
yeah, he's asexual. Yeah.
Is explicitly asexual.
Unless you watch in Riverdale.
I
Which
have.
place he is DTF.
Is he?
Oh, sure.
Oh, does he fuck burgers or
He doesn't eat at all.
what?
They don't even reference like his burger love until like the very end of the
Is
first
he
season.
just into like big boobs? Is he more like Jug's head? Am I right?
That's not a joke that you make.
Well,
You're a father. Yeah, audio clip that one.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I
I'm
will.
trying to think of any gay villains in the Marvel universe.
What about okay? This might show how little I know, but what about Doctor Doom? He seems
He's definitely got a bit of pansexuality to him, or at least bisexuality to him. Like he's never like, and it's funny how it's that archetype sort of leads to that, of like you're this all powerful, very rich, commanding figure, and you take what you want.
It's basically Mick Jagger.
He's basically Mick Jagger.
It's funny that you bring up that archetype too, because that was also like the Frank Underwood thing in House of Cards.
Yeah.
With that actor we can't discuss anymore.
Yeah.
But
that monster person.
yeah.
Who's being given a second chance already. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. There's a thing about it.
Did you give him a second chance? What's going on?
I sent him an email on behalf of all queer people.
As the president.
Spacey, you're back. Don't worry.
Oh no. Yeah, are there?
Yeah, you're a
are
rascal.
Are there any other explicitly
scamp.
explicitly queer villains in Marvel?
Trying to think. Not really. There's a lot of underlying subtext, but again, it could just be reading into it, right?
Sure,
But
yeah.
like, trying to think of. It's not coming to me.
Yeah.
So none prominent. Yeah.
No, prominent ones, definitely. Yeah. And it's funny, and I wonder if part of it is like a concern about like,
in there,
you don't want to portray gay people as being evil.
Right. Which is funny because like we
just talked about Kevin Spacey.
Well, and I also just named like 6 DC ones really. So like DC doesn't have a problem with that.
And I'll probably get home, or somebody's going to listen to it and be like, "There's tons of gay Marvel."
It's a Dr.
shows.
DC podcast. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I can't think of any. No.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, like John Constantine,
Get your shit together,
you
Marvel.
could argue is not necessarily like a good character.
No, he is not. He's definitely
He's
kind
like
of
chaotic
self-serving.
neutral. Yeah. So, you could argue that he's somewhat villanesque.
I think in general, characters that have any sort of connection to magic, I think story-wise, they tend to be the ones more likely to be written as like queer in some way. That like because they're connected to some sort of like bigger, they have a larger connection in the universe. I think narratively that seems to lead a lot of those characters to being bisexual or pansexual or something like that.
I would say Mystique in the Marvel universe. I would say she's got a bit of a pan-bisexuality to her a little bit. Yeah. And again, shapeshifter.
Sure. Yeah.
Shapeshifter.
Interesting.
Shapeshifter. That was a great episode.
That was, yeah.
That was really good.
That was the best one I ever did.
We only talked about Spacey the one time.
We only brought up one Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
So
right at the end to make sure everyone remembers.
Yeah.
So if people want to reach out to you online and say hateful things to you, where can they go?
You can send emails to Richard.
Yeah.
Attention
at sidekickdick@gmail.com.
I think what are my internet handles? On Twitter, I'm at Andrea Stratis, Stratis. Instagram.
Good get.
Instagram, I think it's the same. Yeah, there's not a lot of Stratises in North America.
No, yeah, you can really have
Trish.
your pick.
Yeah, there's Trish, spelled differently though.
Yeah, that's true. More like the cloud.
Yeah. Or the car.
Sure.
Dodge Stratus.
I drive a Dodge Stratus. I can do 100 push-ups in 20 minutes.
I've ridden a couple of Dodge Stratuses. I'm like, but yeah,
You know what I mean?
at Andrea Stratis in most places.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for
Of course.
coming on and making this less of like a cis white guy talking about queer issues episode.
Get off my pedestal.
I should have just stood in the background and just nodded or shook my
Or
head.
just occasionally go,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what you think? Huh.
Just
Interesting.
take notes for the next time that you come on and then list your grievances.
I'll take my notes back to the cabal of queer people.
That's right. Yes. Back to your
of which you're the president.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to send us any questions in further episodes, which do we know what the next one's going to be?
The next one, we're finally going to get to like artifacts and items of power. Colin had a reading assignment, which was
a year ago.
Dial H.
Going to have to read again for sure.
Dial H number 1.
Murder.
Yes.
Yeah. Dial H for murder.
Silent
Dial
H.
H for herstory, right?
Oh, so if you want to send us questions about artifacts and items and things like that,
You can do so on our Facebook at
Dr. DC Podcast.
Instagram, only if it's yes or no questions.
Dr. DC Podcast.
Twitter
At Dr. DC.
Email
drdcpodcast@gmail.com.
and make sure you go to our website.
drdcpodcast.com or .ca.
And make sure that you go onto iTunes, give us a 5-star review, and write something nice. We've been getting some really great ones. I just got in a pile that we're going to have over the next few episodes. So that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Nice.
We're slowly cranking towards the 52 reviews.
Are we?
I'm cranking.
I only crank slowly.
We're slowly making our way there.
You're a father.
If you have if just a few minutes to give us a 5-star review, that would be really helpful. Get us on the new and
Does
noteworthy
it take
sections.
a few minutes to do that?
Yeah, sometimes you have to create an account. Sometimes you have to log in. It can be cumbersome.
Aren't children like born now with iTunes accounts?
Yes, no. It goes with their
Instagram
barcodes.
handle.
Yeah.
We didn't even have to pick a name for my child because she had an iTunes account, so we just named her after that.
She just comes born with a $25 Amazon gift card.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Jeff Bezos delivered a baby by drone.
Your baby is Jeff Bezos reborn.
I'm into that. So yeah,
Born in his image, bald and awful.
we will see you next episode.
Bye.
Some kind of sign off.
Adios.
Haha, me so happy, so goody.
Was that Jabba the Hutt?
Yeah.
All the superheroes, they always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure, they are men of might.